Okay, let me see if we are live here. Yeah, looks like we are. Great. Well, it has been a little bit since we have done a stream. Been under under the water, I guess. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of good stuff going on. Very exciting. Hopefully, we will have some large announcements, and I'm right in the midst of some projects that should change the trajectory of Agile Growth Labs and what we're doing, and looking forward to sharing some of those updates as they are completed. So we are getting to the finish line with that. So very, very excited. It's pretty revolutionary what's out there now. When you look at what's crazy about AI is it helps people become more efficient, but if it used in the right way, it will connect you to anyone you want, and it will connect you to the perfect people that you didn't even know existed, that will save you thousands and hundreds of hours, a year, a month, whatever it's going to be, to put you in front of the right person. Because if you look at the model even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was all about, I should say pre-COVID, it was about getting in the right rooms with the right people, paying the right price points, getting the right masterminds, and paying all this money up front to self-qualify yourself to be with the right people. And what has changed so drastically is that since COVID, everyone has had a little programming shift where they're accepting messages from anyone from anywhere, as long as they're able to highlight where they can stand out in the marketplace in an instant. And it has to be at the right time, at the right place, on the right channel. And if assuming all those things work in your favor, and a lot of it, like Alex Hermosi says, comes through repetition, doing a lot of it, doing the reps, doing as many reps as possible, ultimately to get you to where you want to be. But once you figure out what that is, once you find out what your product market fit is, once you figure out where you belong in the market and how to identify yourself as your own niche or your own niche, right? Where you can say, I am focused on solving this specific problem for this specific person. And once you hit that, I should call it that conjunction point, that's the thing that's going to really bring you to catastrophic growth. And to a point where if you have the messaging and the offering down so well, and you don't really understand how to maintain all of that demand, which is a very interesting spot that Agile is at, then you have a whole set of problems that you begged for before you got in business. But then that just becomes more of an operational question, right? And that's part of what I'm covering here today. And the reason why Agile exists is because time and time and time again, and I'm a victim of this, is that there's so many insanely powerful software companies and AI companies and just powerful and expensive problems that people are willing to pay an absorbent amount of money to solve, that if you know exactly how to position yourself and you're able to get in front of those people, then it's game over. Then it becomes, how could I hire as many A players as possible to take you to that next level? Because you are overdoing it. And this is a huge concept of what I'm going to be talking about today, is when you are, and I'm going to specifically focus on the engineer-led companies, I should say engineer leaders, because people who are building companies and building softwares and building AI products are usually really talented engineers, and they're really good at building products, and that's all they do is they build and they perfect and they build and they perfect in their own silo. So, and what I'm trying to really unlock for most founders is just cut that crap, because what it really comes down to is how well you can get in front of an audience. You can irk someone's attention where you're hitting on their pain point that they're experiencing right now, because all this technology is available to put us in front of the right people. Think about this for a second and know this for a second. Your phone, your iPhone, whatever you have, is listening to every single word you say, morning, noon, and night. It knows when you're up, it knows when you're sleeping, it knows who you're talking to. It has all of the information. So assume that anytime you are putting a video, you're putting a piece of content, you're running an ad, your phone is programmed to put you in front of that perfect person. So I'll give you an example. I am going on a trip, I think in like a couple days, okay? I have been desperately looking for a way for me not to have a single screen on my computer. So, because I've got two screens here. I got one here and I got one here. I've been desperate and begging for a simple solution for me to have multiple screens where I don't have to carry an entire gigantic TV. So I don't have to operate on one screen for 4 or 5 days. I've been talking about this. I've been texting about it. I've talked to family about it. I've talked to friends about it. Lo and behold, I get an ad that is literally a screen that connects to your computer through USBs, pops out two screens that you can look left or right, and it was like $200. Sold. Showed up on my thing. I looked up, did a little bit of research. It's a credible company, and I'm done. Now, if I were to run an ad and have absolutely no targeting and have a description of what my product does, and that thing showed up, I would instantly buy it, because that's exactly what happened. Now, when you look at the macro of that, think about in your business, if you're running ads on Meta, YouTube, Google, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the platform is, now really Amazon. I'm starting to run Amazon ads for one of my clients. Very interesting. So if you look at all of that as a whole, and you've put your product there, and then it gets in front of anyone you want, you are getting massive distribution out the gate, and you are able to quickly identify what's working, what messaging is working, what positioning is working, what audience member that you're talking to, if that's working. And that's just on the distribution side. Then people look at their individual pages, right? Well, this page is working, this page isn't working, and then they turn the whole thing off and they restart, and they turn off and they restart, and that's total nonsense, right? And I'll get into that in a bit. But really, when you think about it from a macro level, get in front of as many people as possible, look at each individual unit, meaning if you're running ads on Meta and you have got good engagement, people are clicking on it, but people aren't opting in or buying on your landing pages or on your sales pages, that doesn't mean the ad sucks. That means your landing page sucks. So just be sure you can differentiate the two, right? If your checkout process sucks, then fix that, because everything's working. People are adding to cart, but no one's going to the checkout. That doesn't mean turn everything off and restart and do it all over again. That just means improve the checkout process, right? So that's me getting a little further into the weeds than I needed to. But it's a very important concept for you to really understand the mindset going into this, because everything I'm talking about really comes down to people who are trying to perfect their product. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a SaaS or AI company, or if you're selling candy bars, right? You need to just get in front of the people. So maybe let's challenge this for a second. Don't build a product. Just try to solve a problem and address a problem through email marketing or through paid ad media or through affiliate partnerships, or do a waiting list, do a paid waiting list. And I'll get into the tactics and all this later, but get in front of people and see how many people are willing to raise their hand or pay and say, I will put myself on a waiting list specifically to do this. And I'll talk about this in a second too, as far as this is exactly what Elon Musk did for the Cybertruck, right? He had people wait 5-6 years. They put down $100 deposit saying, once this is released, I will buy this product. I will buy the Cybertruck. And he had 1 or 2 million people put down $100. He used that to go raise money to go build the thing. And now some people got, there's some people who refunded and ended up taking advantage of it, but he sold plenty of Cybertrucks, right? So that's the thinking and the mindset you need to have before you go into building the thing. Is people understanding what problem you're going to solve, get buy-in, get people to take out their credit card, get people to raise their hand, get people to opt in, and then you build. You might frustrate people, but it would be really frustrating if you spent the next year of your life building something that no one cares about. That is the thesis of what I'm going to be talking about, okay? And I beat up on engineers a little bit on this because this is what engineers do, is they start building out the gate. It's not about building out the gate. So take all of that engineer brain and all the things that you would be doing to build that thing, ignore all of your instincts, and just get out there. Engineer the perfect marketing message. That's what you should be engineering. Engineer distribution, the marketing message, the problem you're solving, who you're solving it for, okay? So that's what I'm going to be covering. End rant, maybe. So I wrote an article. If you don't subscribe to me on LinkedIn, feel free to do that. I'm going to be moving into a private one shortly, but I wanted to continue to provide as much value as I can. I've got about 1,000 people plus that are subscribers to this. I think I can show you that if I move it over. Let me move this over for a second. So right here, I've got about 1,000 people who are subscribed to this. It's called AI-Powered SaaS and Exits. If you find me on LinkedIn, Henry Krause. And this is what I am talking about for the article I wrote the other day. Again, this is why your growth stalled, okay? So I go into this whole concept of we really need to be correcting the model, okay? What you're building and what people are going to pay for are two different things, okay? And so the model is you're not building the product, you're building the distribution. If you want to do it simultaneously, that's fine. But the losing model is building the product, launching, finding customers. It's pretty much backwards. Okay? Find the customers, launch, and then build the product. Okay? So, and I bring up, this Cybertruck launch example right here. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. And so I go into details as far as what you need to do and how this could be actionable and the models and the frameworks to actually apply for this. But this is something to really, really drive home for you guys. So there's going to be a couple components, and I'm going to show examples of, again, we've had plenty of success. When I go and show just some frameworks of what we've done for people. This was a little launch that we did for one of our clients, and he was able to generate 28,000 new customers, people that took out their credit card and paid him, all leveraging his social media account. Amazon and Alexa, same thing. They were able to get more distribution and get in front of more people and have a clear path to communicate because they focus on distribution. Pendo, they were able to save, it looks like it's cut off a little bit, but each month they saved, from what I believe, over 3,000 hours. So if they're taking calls, they're charging someone $30, they're paying an employee $30 an hour to take 30-minute calls, and we've saved them 3,000 hours, and they've got in front of 6,000 people. When you scroll to the bottom here, it will show that we saved over $90,000. And this is Pendo, right? This is an Inc. 5000 company. And if you look at us Unfiltered, a couple events later, they were able to build their database of 6,300 people, and that turned into over 88,000, almost 89,000 in new revenue. Business Forum, they were able to take the success of what we've built, get in front of 13,000 people, and this was a few years ago. Now, from last time I checked, it was over, I believe, like $500,000 in sponsorship revenue that was generated, right? So when you look at all these different data points, it's really important to truly understand the power of what's getting set up. And so when you look at something as simple as, what does this mean? If you have 100,000 people visiting your site, and of those 100,000 people, 5% of them or 5.5% of them are adding to cart, and only 1.76 are actually checking out, that means you don't need to be adding more people. You have the consistency. You understand what's working, right? What you need to be doing is increasing this percent from 1.76 to 5, because that's gonna quadruple your revenue. So same amount of traffic, increase this metric, you automatically increase the revenue. So you need to understand the compounding impacts of, everyone's always talking about generating more leads and doing all these things. That is definitely important, and you need to get your distribution game down. Once you have your distribution game down, then you need to look at all the individual steps of where are people falling through the cracks for you to ultimately to increase the number that you're going for, right? And so, when you look and map out what's working and what performed well and what didn't, this is what you should really be doing when it comes down to it. So that's kind of the moat when it comes to just understanding the frameworks for how you're going to build it, right? And so when it comes to this, let me move this around. I don't know why. Sometimes it's a little wonky. I use OBS, and it's kind of cool platform. Sometimes it gets a little wonky, but generally it seems pretty cool. So when you look at engineer-led SaaS, right, this is what we call why your growth is stalled. You've got something that's cool, you're getting in front of people, and then from there, usually engineer-driven or engineer-led companies don't implode because their product sucks. That's usually not the case. It's because their distribution sucks, and they get a flurry of customers, and then they just focus on building, but they don't keep tripling down on the distribution because they need more inbound, because you can make as many mistakes as possible if your distribution game is done the right way, right? And so, like I mentioned here, the SaaS graveyard is full. It's not about bad luck or market timing. It's just not understanding the operational components of what's required for you to succeed. Okay, so if you look at this for a second, what you're building and then what they're paying for is not going to always be directly correlated, right? So the question that usually engineers goes, this is so cool. Wow, they're crushing it. I want to build the next Lovable. I want to build the next Manus. Manus is another company that in the last, I think 9 or 10 months, they went from 0 to 100 million. Meta just acquired them for $2 billion. Okay. And now Manus, if you go into the Meta platform, Manus is directly integrated now. So now you're going to be able to create great copy and great images, and it's going to help you streamline and look at the data and break it down and figure out what you need to be optimizing. That's incredible. And again, they're not buying it. I mean, they are buying it a little bit for the usability and the technology and all that. But Manus isn't something that was revolutionary. From my standpoint, they would not be able to have done any of that without OpenAI, because all Manus is doing is it doesn't have its own learning model. It might now that it's got all the metadata, but what it does is it took different AI. It's in its simplest form. If you ask Manus a question or you ask it to go build something, it's taking data inputs from an OpenAI or Gemini or Perplexity or name your thing. It's doing its own research using all the inputs from those platforms, and then it's creating its own output. So again, it's not anything revolutionary, But this is what people were looking for. They're looking for something that is not so one-sided. You're able to get multiple perspectives. You're able to actually take what was created and what's created from your question and then go build a website or use that for a code breakdown to go plug into build your own software. There's all these abilities that you can have with it. But again, it's not about can we build this? It's is there something here where they absolutely crush it. And where they crushed it was they added exclusivity right out the gate. This thing was they got a bunch of press. They were pumping it out. They're talking about it on X. They were not letting businesses in. They were letting individuals and students and people who were trying to hack the system and figure out what they needed to do to get into Manus. People would create hundreds of accounts just to get access to this thing because it was the next cool thing. And there was this exclusivity waiting list thing. And if you look at the Birkin bag or Louis Vuitton or Rolex, they make a ton of money by adding this whole layer of exclusivity and get everyone to talk about it. And then everyone talks about it. People get excited. They're willing to jump through hoops, wait in line, do whatever it takes to be their next customer. They make it extremely difficult to be their next customer. And then they open the floodgates. And once they open the floodgates, that changes the whole relationship dynamic between the customer and the platform. And now everyone's they look at this as a super high value, super impressive solution. Now, once they're in, they're hooked. They're like, I'm in this exclusive group. I'm the cool group. I'm going to be able to take advantage of this. And that right there is where Manus really crush it with their distribution. So again, you have to really think about what are these people doing and how is the psychology being played into this ultimately to reach that hockey stick growth, right? And this is me getting into it again. And I shared this image in my article. And I'll give you a story because it's crazy how much money was spent during a time before AI. And it's also crazy to think about at the end of spending so much money and all of your time and energy and resources and not mastering the distribution game ultimately killed what I think could have been my 9-figure exit, right? And that sits with me every day and bothers the heck out of me. Now, maybe for the best or for the worst, and that's why I've done what I've done, right, with Agile Growth Labs and all of that. But in 2015, 2016, I started a company with my business partner, Jet Webinar. Jet Webinar is a video conferencing platform that first started as an automated platform. And the idea is that you can get someone to register for an event. You could sell a product or service directly in an event. You could sell a ticket. And it's this thing that's supposed to make money on demand. You get people to register, you collect their email, they watch this presentation, they buy, they become a lead, you follow up with them, that customer, that lead becomes a customer, and it runs on autopilot. You can make money while you sleep, and it's really selling this dream, okay? And then every time I got on a call, the question would be, well, why don't you have a live webinar solution? Why are we meeting on Zoom to talk about your video conferencing or your webinar solution? And that messed with our heads, because then we're like, okay, wow, we need to be an automated webinar solution. We need to be a live webinar solution. We need to be a meeting solution. And we spent over $2 million building this all-encompassing platform. And then once we hit all those milestones, we had the automated solution, we had the live webinar solution, we had the meeting solution. After lots of headache, after lots of years dragging on, taking all of our time and resources away from distribution to ultimately focus on the core product, which could have been just live and automated webinars, but then building a meeting room was another $500,000 or whatever that was, with a big development team that we had to go manage and, hire people overseas, and plenty of problems to talk about that I'm not really interested in talking about right now. Okay. And there's there was this inflection point where we had all of that. We're like, great. Anytime we talk to someone, we'll be able to seal that deal. No, we actually couldn't be further from the truth, because each time we talk to someone, they're looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So we became this super feature heavy product. And then at the end of it, someone would log in and they'd be, there's too much here, I'm confused. I almost went crazy. I almost went nuts. Okay. So at the end of all that, that was probably around 2018, 2019. 2020, Zoom is about list their public IPO. And what were they selling? They were selling happy meetings. You look at their reports, you look at their public and their SEC reports. They were selling happy meetings. What the hell is a happy meeting? I have no idea to this day what the hell is a happy meeting. But what I do know is they were a meeting platform right in the midst of COVID, and they were timed perfectly. They went public. The world shut down. Everyone needed a simple meeting solution, and they were at $550 to $600 a share. While I was sitting here, not focusing on distribution, overbuilding features, and getting really pissed. So, fast forward, people don't need happy meetings. They want, they're trying to link video conferencing to revenue generation, and there was great opportunities there. We brought on some great enterprise clients, Amazon, Toshiba, all these things. But if we focus on one simple solution, I don't know why we couldn't have had a big exit, got bought out, gone public, because there's other people in the space who were also exiting for $250 million. And we also did our own acquisition. Well, listen, we bought another company and they had 3 million users. And so I'm not saying it was a failure by any means necessary. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that it always could have been more. And maybe that's the entrepreneur in me. And that lit a huge fire under my butt to really identify and simplify things so we're not so engineered led and we're distribution led. And that's the whole thesis of Agile. And that's the whole thesis of what I'm talking about here. Okay. So again, if your distribution is an engineering problem with 5 core problems, okay, and I think I'm hiding one of them. So let me move this over for a second. So I am hiding one. 5 core systems, I should say. So in here, you're capturing the signal, you're getting the story right, you're understanding your distribution and what mediums you're going to use. You are going to take so 1 through 3 is building the audience. Once you build the audience, it's moving and getting them to buy, using that data to have a feedback loop. It is that simple. It is that simple, okay? And remember, one of my business partner with Agile Growth Labs, Jason, he's done over 40 billion in M&A deals using this framework. 40 billion in M&A deals using this exact framework. Okay. So for you to say, oh, well, that's a one-off based on no, that's the framework. So if you look at the customer feedback, whoever builds a product will always run into this. And it's very important to understand the difference between a free user that will say, I've got this feedback and you can do this or this differently or whatever. If they're not willing to take out their credit card and pay you, I wouldn't even listen to them. I really wouldn't, because if you have 5,000 people that are coming in and you say, well, if it does just this one thing, then I'll do it. Great. How about you pay me right now? I'll put that into your program and then we'll be all set. That will be launched in the next 72 hours. Okay. Or, I still need to think about it. Then what you're talking about is not the problem, right? If everything is perfect and we just had this one thing, is that what would get you over the edge? Absolutely. Great. Take out your credit card. And if I don't get it done for you in the next week, I'll send you your money back. I'll sign on that right now. So what people are saying and what they're doing needs to be differentiated. So I talk to founders all the time that are looking to raise money, and there's always things in motion, and they've got contracts and soft commitments. Are they taking out their credit card and paying you? People vote with their wallet. I've got a good friend, Peter Anthony. He goes, people vote with their wallet. Are they voting for you with their wallet? If yes, fantastic. We've got a great future ahead of us. If not, you are going to talk to 5,000 more of those people who are not voting with their wallet, and they are wasting your time and resources. So here's the truth, okay? The data, it's not lying, okay? So of the startups that built what customers asked for, it still failed because people didn't vote with their credit card, right? So it was just based on watching, and think about this for a second, okay? And I use this as an example, and I do this for some of my own companies, but let me break this down for a quick second, just because this is just kind of interesting to me, okay? Where I use a platform called Microsoft Clarity, and I can use it for like here. Let me just kind of pull an example up here. So in here, I want to get a better idea. Let me just kind of do a bigger data set as we're kind of building up our distribution. So in here, we've got all these people who are interacting with our, with different articles and content or whatever it might be, okay? I go in here all the time, and I want to see what are people clicking, what are they interested in, and this is specifically why I set my site up for founders versus investors. I want to know what, and if you go here, same thing, founders versus investors. Who's a founder? Who's an investor? What content are they interested in? What are the resources? So this site is an iteration of probably a 6th iteration, because I had a bunch of different options in the beginning. I had a bunch of different ways, different paths that people can go down. I had a bunch of different case studies. I wanted to see what they were doing, what they were clicking on, what they were interested in. And what I found was that people wanted content that they can use and act on. And people wanted info just for investors, and people wanted info just for founders. So that's exactly what I delivered here. And they're clicking, and they want to go to the next step or look at the next page. And then so this system is what I'm reflecting exactly here, right? Is looking exactly at the data of understanding what their watching behavior is. What are they doing on your app? What are they doing on your website? What are they doing with your ads? What are they doing with your articles? That's is the thing that's gonna move the needle, right? And so the other thing I see all the time is that, and you can look up examples right now. I'm happy to do it, where you'll find X, Y, and Z company that has raised way too much money. They don't know what to do with it, and they tank very quickly. Let's do a little fun activity right now, real quick, okay? Where I'll ask ChatGPT, tell me about 3 companies that raised a lot of money and went out of business 1 to 3 years later. This doesn't need to be a thinking thing. This is just a quick example, okay? So again, if you're raising so much money that once the money comes in, you have an oh shit moment of, okay, I need to figure out what exactly I'm going to do with this money. That is a bad problem to have, because the moment that capital is deployed into your company, you need to know before that money hits exactly where it's going to be deployed, because you need to be having a system that already works that you're adding an amplifier to. There needs to be a little fire. You're putting a ton of gas on it. The thing blows up in a good way because you know exactly what you're going to be doing, right? So here's a couple examples. This company, French company, Ecom, they raised 15 million Series D at a $175 million valuation. 2023. In 2024, they ceased operations. Insolvency. If they had a working system, so look, I mean, think about this for a second. If they had a working system and they were amplifying the thing that's already working, there is zero reason. But if they have a broken system, they have no idea what the hell they're doing. And then from there, they're just they have so much money and they're forced to spend it as quickly as possible and hire people and try these different campaigns and do whatever. It is going to tank the company so quick, your head will spin. And that's really what this is about. Look at this one, Easy Mile. Again, these are companies I don't know of. This is what ChatGPT pulled up, okay? This one, Easy Mile. 88 million euros over multiple rounds, 55 million euro Series B in 2021. 3 years later, gone. Self-driving trucks. This is the future, right? Like they were going to compete with like Tesla or something. Who knows, right? Y Combinator raised $20 million. They did this in 2018. 2 years later, done. 4 years in business. 2 years after raising millions of dollars, gone. So, again, know what the heck you're scaling. If you don't know what you're scaling, what's the point? You're wasting everyone's time and money. So this is a core thing that companies really fail to understand is they think the moment they raised, they've made it. They figured it out. They hit the pinnacle of entrepreneurship. They convinced an investor to give them money. That is not business. It's, have you taken this thing so you have built a system that's scalable where 1 + 1 = 3, and if you go dump $1 million or 2 or 5 or 88 million euros or whatever it's going to be, is that the thing that's going to scale you to the next level? If the answer is no, and you can't even do it on a small scale, but you think, if I can't do this with 3 million, but I could do it with 30, that's a huge problem right there. It's a huge problem. You've got no path. You're going to lose. It's a losing battle. And then you got a bad reputation after you do that too, but that's a whole different thing. So this is why I really hit home on this main concept that I've been talking about since the very beginning of this whole thing, before I even started, was if you're an engineer-led company and you are so hell-bent on being able to do something that, let me zoom in on this for a second. If you're so hell-bent on building the perfect product, you need to get your distribution game down. You need to know who you're talking to. You need to know what channels you're using. You need to know the problems that you're solving. And again, they could solve a lot of people's problem for a low dollar amount, or it can solve a smaller to larger, or solve a smaller group of people's problem for a way higher dollar amount that hits. That's basically a rich person's problem, right? If you're right in the middle, then that thing needs to scale really, really well, and it shouldn't need that much human intervention in order for you to do that. So this is why I'm saying this engineer-led SaaS problem goes back to my Jet webinar example. Every time I talked to someone, they had feedback on what they would do, and what I should have told them is, if you give me $5,000 for this feature, I'll give you 2 years access to this, and then we can do X, Y, or Z. Or if you put down a big deposit to get this done, because there's no other video conferencing platform in the world that's going to solve this specific problem and build this specific solution for you, then we've got nothing to talk about. And I should have been way more aggressive about that point, because that's where everyone's getting things wrong, is they're taking cheap advice because there's no skin in the game. And that's why, if you have a huge influx of people that you are talking to and you focus so hard on that distribution, and you've got an unlimited number of people that are getting in line to talk to you, and That is the thing that's going to blow you up. Back to Manus. Manus had a great product. They didn't build their own. They were leveraging other existing data, other existing AI platforms. They made it super hard and exclusive to get in. Then once people came in, they were willing to pay whatever it took for them to stay in. And it's the same business model as Louis Vuitton and Birkin and all these other luxury brands, and they took the same playbook just for software or AI. Okay, same exact concept. So that's why I'm saying money is the amplifier here, and or it's your Achilles heel. Okay, so if you look at the concept of what I'm talking about of shipping versus learning. Okay, so if you're shipping something, that's great. You put something out in the market, you're getting feedback, you know what you need to do. And so let me just go back to the slideshow here. So you know what needs to get done, right? And you need that market validation ultimately to know that the product is the thing where you're buying that data point. You're getting the clarity data. You're getting an understanding of how people are directly integrating or are working with your products. And so that's the thing that people are going to need to know. And that's why you need more velocity and distribution and not the perfect product. Okay. So that's what you need to be looking at is once you ship it, collect the data, make adjustments. Ship it, collect the data, make adjustments. That's the reiteration process that you need. Okay. So the truth is here, let me, guess it's cutting off a little bit from what I'm seeing in the comments here. So let me just pull this back a little bit for you. So I think I can, here, let me move my stuff over. Okay. So in here, right, if you look at the actual strategy, okay, you bolt on AI to workflows and assume that it's just going to increase your margins. Like I've got an AI platform. No, you don't. You don't. And what you need is you need clarity on the specific workflow that you're creating, right? So let me just kind of give like an example, okay? And so the example that I have is I spent a lot of time on a marketing agency side building people's online business. We've taken them from 0 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 figures in revenue. And every time I got it to 30 to 40,000 in revenue, there was a breaking point. And that breaking point was pretty much, well, once I brought on an additional customer, that killed my focus to focus on the actual growth and the operations of the business. And that became a very frustrating data point because I knew that what I had worked. I knew I had clients and customers that were happy, they were sticking around, they were getting results. That was the thing. Was I able to go generate results? And the main problem was all this knowledge that was in my head was only in my head. It wasn't documented like most people experience, most engineer-led companies experience, okay? And also I had frameworks and processes and systems and a delegation issue. So all these things kept coming down to me because I got to a point where every time that it was a breaking point and there was all these urgent tasks that needed to get done and new clients were coming in and all these things were happening, I was like, fine, I'll just pull an all-nighter and I'll just get it done. And that was the most Band-Aid solution that I kept doing time and time and time again. And so I had a breaking point like that. And it brought me to this place where I was like, you know, what I really need to do is I need to set something up where it is so easy for me to manage multiple things going on at a time, where if I brought on a very good operator, they would know exactly what to do because everything that's here is in my brain and I'm able to deliver it and document it and give my frameworks. And so that's exactly what I did. So I took all of my knowledge, I documented everything, I recorded videos, I took all of my frameworks, I took all of my scopes of work, I took all the deliverables, I documented everything like a madman. I put it into a platform, and I was understanding from an operator perspective, okay, if an operator were to come in and manage all these clients and I were to step away from the business and go on vacation for 30 days or whatever, would they be able to actually deliver on this? And without me in the past, the answer was absolutely not, right? And that was insane. So what I did here was I built a solution. And again, this was just to solve a specific problem that I was experiencing, and I used AI. And again, when I go to show you this, this is not to sell a feature, but this is to really streamline the economics and the reliability and monitoring what's going on in the business without me needing to superimpose myself into each thing that was going on, because that would drive any entrepreneur insane. So what I did is I built like a leadership review and an ops review and understanding what the team workload is, and then what the status is for each individual client and the health of all that. And then I built like a CRM and individual clients. And then I built different framework trainings that I use. Then I have different playbooks. So I took all of this information in my head and I put it on here directly so anyone on the team could use it to help with these specific tasks. And I only have me and my main ops person, because we're hiring more people and we're using this to train them. And once they're fully bought in, then they can go log in and do this and knock it out, right? So, for myself internally, I've got a task queue, and I've got a board, and then I can go move these things over, and then I can say what's getting worked on and what's not, and so what's part of the weekly plan that needs to get done. So this gives me total insight on what's going on for each aspect of the business, who's overworked, what's going on with the ops, who's in charge of it, what's breaking down, what are the different content points that need to be created. And again, this just came from my own pain point in my business, but I'm not saying I'm building a company, an AI company for a custom CRM for any agency to use. No, I am providing value. I'm helping companies generate revenue. Now, how do I systematize that? How do I document it? How do I hand that off so anyone in my team that I hire can use it? Now, will an agency come and say, I'd love to use that? Sure, go ahead. You need to buy the data and the frameworks, and that needs to be a license deal because no one's going to have access to that but me. That's a different conversation, but that's something really important to really consider, right? So when you look at the things that are actually working within an organization, you need to position and clarify the messaging. You need to focus on that distribution. Once that thing is actually working, then you're doing a production with AI, right? I've got the product market fit. I know if I do X amount of RFPs, if I send X number of cold emails, if I run X number of ads, I know how many book calls, I know how many sales, I know how many direct messages, how much revenue will come out of the other side of that. That is a lot of work that needs to get done before I'm able to go say, let's go build AI and let's go do this thing. There has to be a moat built in place ultimately to do that, right? So the technical excellence here is not the moat. It's the isolation of I got to go just do this one AI thing and that's going to go change everything. That's not the truth. You have to do the work. You've got to understand, download the data, then put yourself in the right positioning spot so you can get that distribution. So then once you use that distribution, then you can train your AI models to use it. And what people are failing to understand is the data that's being trained by AI is the thing that's adding value to companies. It could be a SaaS company, it could be an AI company, it could be an operations company, it doesn't matter. But that's the thing that needs to really get done and downloaded ultimately for you to understand that that's the thing that's going to take companies to, again, a hockey stick growth, okay? So when you look at, let me get myself out of the way in here because I don't know why that does that. So in here, if there's the cost of not understanding how you're positioning yourself in the market and what that's actually doing for the business, right? So if you have bad positioning, the most expensive burden that you're going to have within the organization is you can be in front of the perfect person and say the wrong thing. So if you're in front of the perfect person, you're saying the wrong thing, that is going to be frustrating to anyone. Okay. So you can have an expensive problem and you clarify the plan so the customers can instantly understand what you want to solve. And then you can have the enemy of, here's the old model, here's the new model, this is what you've done, this is what we can do to help, right? There's that component to it. And then there's the measurable win, right? I was able to take company from X to Y by implementing this framework. Now, I'm not going to go into the technicals of what I did to use this framework, but this is the framework. And if you want to actually know the framework and know the individual steps within that framework, then you can pay me to do that. And I know Russell Brunson and Dan Martell and Alex Hormozy and all these people talk about that, which is very important, by the way, because people are sitting there and they're over teaching and they're over explaining. And then everyone's like, great, thanks so much for all that information. I'm going to take that information and give it a try. If it doesn't work out, I'll give you a call back. Well, okay, cool. Now you wasted their time. You wasted your time for talking about it, teaching them. Now you're wasting their time because they're not bought in. They've got no skin in the game. They're going to fail. Then 6 months is going to go by. A year's going to go by. Then the pain is so bad, then they're going to come and take action, right? And then there's the proof, right? What's the actual social proof that you've done this before? If someone's got a problem and someone doesn't know how to set up their company structure the right way to get the biggest enterprise value for their SaaS and AI company, I need to show them what I've done in the past to position other SaaS and AI companies on how to do the right company structure to properly position themselves, and other examples of those companies that have gotten a much bigger exit because of what I've done. And that is the most expensive problem a SaaS or AI company could have right now, is they're misaligning and misrepresenting themselves and not setting up their corporate structure the right way. And proxy don't have the right distribution channels and they don't have the right relationships, and they're not doing this, and it's cannibalizing their upside, because usually the biggest payday when a founder starts a company is when he or she sells it, right? And so if I can show them the systems and the frameworks and the things that I've put in place can actually help amplify a founder's payday after they sell, they will pay me whatever I ask them to, right? So that's the positioning that's really important for this, okay? So here's the engineering pipeline to really think about, and I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I don't think it's showing up here all the way. So in here, you've got the signal. So you're putting out a signal, you're putting something out there. What are people actually saying that they need help with, right? I can solve a specific problem. How many of those people are actually interacting with that specific problem, okay? And again, use all the AI and assume no matter what you're doing, if you're keeping your marketing message super broad, it can be making a video, you can be posting a newsletter, you can be doing whatever, running an ad, that every time you are putting something out online, your phone is listening to your ideal customer's cell phone. They're listening to their phone. And once they listen to them, they know exactly what pain points they have, and they're going to put you in front of that person whose exact pain point you solve. Everything you do moving forward needs to assume that. So you put out the signal, you build your list, then you put your offer in front of the people who have raised their hand and said that they're interested. Then you do a DM or a phone call, you close them, and that's going to be the leverage. You got to leverage your content. You got to leverage outbound. You got to leverage partnerships. Once people are in your ecosystem, you continue to stay in front of them. And the best way to stay in front of them is show that you solve this problem over and over and over and over and over again, right? And once you do that, they are going to pay you to solve this problem, because this is exactly the framework that works. It's exactly the framework for if you're $1 million company, if you're a $10 million company, if you're a $100 million company. Now, most companies, believe it or not, trying to break through that glass ceiling of going from 3 million to 10 million don't actually understand these fundamentals, right? Once you're past the 10 million, they usually do, right? But that's the general concept. So in here, this is the production grade AI, so to speak, right? You've got your evals, you got your regression testing, you got to understand what your cost is going to be, and then from there, how reliable are your systems, okay? And so you need to understand where are things going to fail, how can you understand those data points for you to go fix those failing data points, and so that's the thing that needs to get done, okay? So instead of building the features and doing all the things and doing all the fun things, you don't need to overcomplicate it. Stop trying to build. Just do what works, get the distribution, get in front of people, put the signal out there, get people to raise their hand, and then you take action, right? And so happy to help with whatever this, based on where you are at in the life cycle, specifically for SaaS and AI companies. Agile Growth Labs is definitely a way where we can help you. I can give you the frameworks. You can even do something as simple as just going the best place to start. If you go to Agile Growth Labs, go to our resources. Okay, you can opt into our newsletter or look at our directory for things that we have, or you can get our playbook to position yourself for a SaaS exit. But the best place to start, or I would say the best two places to start, is getting the training, and that's totally free. And this is also another free resource that we have. So this is the free training of what you need to do to really help with your distribution and get in front of more people. And then this is also a valuation score. So you go through and you complete a series of questions that we will collect all of your metrics. We will collect other data points. And again, this is going to be about, right now it's free. We will eventually be charging for this. So if you haven't used this yet, you should. But the whole concept here is that in the playbook, what we want to do is get a valuation score. The valuation, there's two scores. There's a valuation score of how valuable is your company, and then how acquirable is your company. And then by this being not at 100, how much value you're losing because you're not there. And once you understand these data points, then you can use this to have a business intelligence breakdown and also a growth plan, right? So what do you need to do as far as like your SWOT analysis? What's your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and then what you need to do to get the biggest valuation possible, okay? So here's some of the quick wins, and then here's some of the data. I put this in for my organization, but these are just different metrics for you to even present to an investor. And normally, if you're getting info like this from a business valuation expert, 50 to 100 grand. This is totally free, okay? So in here, this will give you a breakdown of what you need to be doing, step-by-step implementation. Shocker. Survey the customers, prioritize by impact, right? So who's willing to pay? Ship those updates, okay? And then from there, then you can get a clear breakdown of what you need to be doing, increasing, reduce your CAC, increase the valuation by doing X, Y, and Z, okay? So that's kind of a breakdown here, and then from there, then you can just look at the other components of what you need ultimately to maximize your growth plan, okay? So this should give you everything ultimately for you to be successful on that side. Here, free training as far as what you need to be doing to get the replay sent to your email, free opt-in, and then what we're covering is basically how you can increase your valuation, the things that you need to be doing right now to increase your valuation. And all this is proven by all the data that we've been collecting through all the M&A deals that our leadership team has had. So hopefully this gives you everything that you need ultimately for you to really consider the most valuable aspect of what you need to be doing to increase your value proposition, what you need to be doing to increase your revenue, what you need to be doing to increase your acquirability score. And so these are all things that are the most, I should say, the highest ROI activity a founder, an investor, an operator could be doing, because these are the things that are going to take you to the next level within the organization. So That being said, I really appreciate everyone who has jumped on. Saw a lot of people who were sticking around longer than usual, which is really great to see. And so, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to pop in. So if you have questions, thoughts, comments, definitely be checking them out. Also know that I will be taking this video, this long form video, be clipping it out. Something that I definitely recommend everyone to be doing is creating long form video content, clipping it, reposting it, moving all those audience members directly to the long form, because that is the thing to increase your distribution, your growth. And again, thank you so much for everyone who has attended. Look forward to seeing you on our next stream. Have a good one.